Hello and welcome back to episode 28 of the Nord Search podcast. And as you can probably tell, I'm not on video today. I'm in a fancy podcast studio in London, and I'm delighted to be joined by my guest, Julie Arnold, who is Head of Power, Gas and Emissions at Dare. So Julie, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Patrick. Thanks for inviting me.
No, it's great to actually do this in person today.
Yeah, very nice gaff as well.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
Yeah, nearly got lost on the way, but got here just in time. But Julie, look, for those who don't know you, you're obviously very well known in the London energy trading scene. There's quite a lot of European guests who might not be aware. So for those, could you give us an overview of your really interesting career and what you're responsible for?
Yeah, so I started in the power trading industry in 1997. I was a UK power trader. That was my first trading job. And I spent a few years at a retail company before I joined RWE Trading, where I was for 17 years. Yeah. Now I'm at Dare. So I've been at Dare now since 2021 and running the power and gas mainly there.
Awesome. So I was really interested in obviously your career at RWE, and it was a very successful career, and it took you in quite a few different places you mentioned to me. So it'd be really interesting to understand like what your journey was like there and the learnings along the way, really.
Yeah, I think looking back, what was quite, from my perspective, what was quite helpful for my career was that I got some opportunities to move away from power into some of the other products quite early on. So after doing UK power, whilst I was at RWE at the beginning, I was offered a job as a gas options trader. Right. Having never traded gas and never trading options, it was quite a scary prospect, but I decided to just go for it and did that for a couple of years, and that went well. And a couple of years later, I was then offered a role to build a coal and freight trading business, which I spent 10 years doing. Wow. And that gave me a completely different angle again. So I was looking at a lot more physically shipped commodities then in coal and freight, and also brought in my options experience at the time. And I think that was, looking back, great that had happened, because then I had power and gas and coal. Yeah. And it was actually the UK power experience from the very early days which led me to Singapore. Right. So I moved out to Singapore in 2015. To trade Australian power, which had quite a similar market design to the UK power market in the early days, and also to lead the expansion into Asia for power markets for RWE. Right, and so I spent 4 years out there, and there were a lot of similarities in Australia as to the early days of the UK, but then it was exciting to be able to get exposure in the early days to the Japanese market as well, which is still growing at the moment.
Yeah, which everyone wants to enter at the moment. So it's interesting that you did trade different products and different commodities, because I see some people in the industry, they'll stay as like a power trader their whole career, but I guess like you said, it benefited you to go into different products and take different opportunities. So like, as a trader, how did that benefit you?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that's the best way of doing it, because actually some people that stay in one commodity for the whole of their career, they become real true experts in that commodity. But for me, I could move to a new commodity and bring in experiences from a completely different angle. I probably mentioned the gas options trading, for example, that I did. When I started in the coal market, and I had a physical business as well as a financial business, and also in the freight market, there was a lot of optionality in the market in those days, and understanding those aspects of optionality, which I was very lucky to learn, because I'd just been put on the spot as an options trader and had to figure it out as I went along. No one came to teach me how to trade options. I had to go and figure it out. And then again, that brings me to now, where we've got at Dare, I've been building a physical gas business. So we're involved in the storages and transport, as a lot of people are these days. And the structured options experience from being a coal and freight trader is actually quite relevant to the structured options in the gas market. So that's been a benefit. Yeah.
And I guess, like as you say now, you're a leader of different products. So I guess that would be advantageous, having traded different commodities as well.
Yeah, and I think traders do value that even though I might not know the products, for example, intraday power, when I was a UK power trader, they didn't have an intraday market because the market design was different. So I haven't personally traded intraday power, but now I do have an intraday power team. And I do think having traded a number of different products, it gives me an edge in being able to understand what the guys are doing in that market. So if they do explain something, I can understand it.
Yeah, for sure. And just talking about leadership, like as a leader, like when did you start moving from trader to leader? What point in your career was that?
That was probably the main experience of that was in 2005 when, as I mentioned, I took on the role of head of coal trading. RWE, and inherited a desk that was very small at the time and a desk that hadn't been doing very well. And one of the most interesting things about that time, which carries through to now, is between 2005 and 2008, the market was expanding. A lot of new companies were entering. A lot of banks were involved in energy trading in those days. And as a new desk head with inherited 4 guys at the time, I needed to build out the team. And over the 10 years, that team grew to about 60, 70 people globally.
Oh, wow.
But the most difficult thing was that there was no talent to recruit in the market, or very limited talent, because a lot of new companies are set up, and that's very similar to what's been happening in the last few years, as a lot of new funds have entered the market now, and because people made big profits in 2021, 22, that's attracting even more people to the market. So that was my biggest hurdle, was to grow a very good quality team from scratch when it was hard to hire anyone, never mind a good person. And so one of the things that I did then, or the main thing that added to the success of that desk, was I lobbied to the board of RWE to propose a graduate programme, to start a graduate programme. And I was really passionate about getting graduates from university that were smart, that could join the team and learn about trading, learn about coal, or learn about freight. And as a team, we then grew that. And that graduate scheme is still very successful these days. So it was very hard work in the early days, but I really enjoyed seeing graduates coming through straight from university and spending 5, 10, 20 years at the company, and seeing how they grew and thrived and made a lot of money for the company throughout those years.
Yeah, no, I've heard about this graduate program at RWE. So it'd be great to just take us back to that point when you were wanting to focus on graduates, and obviously you've then been very successful hiring graduates and training them up. So there's lots of graduates that listen to this podcast. They reach out to me quite often. So it'd be interesting to understand, like, what are the traits that you look for now, and potentially has it changed in the last 10, 15 years?
Certain things have changed, but I think the underlying thing that we'll be looking for hasn't changed. And we obviously look for smart people. I've always looked for people that are mathematically smart. I mean, I was a mathematician at university, and maybe I'm a little bit biased and want to recruit people like me. I always wanted to recruit people with mathematical ability or very logical mindsets. I think that's even more important now with the amount of data and the amount of coding involved in trading, more quantitative trading, which has increased over the years. But also, as well as there's no point just having someone that's a mathematical genius that can't translate concepts into real life situations and have a logical mind to understand how to simplify complexities, I suppose is quite a good way of putting it. Also, people that have got really inquisitive minds, curious minds, really want to work hard and dig and dig and dig. And it's hard to exaggerate. And I've spent a lot of time, even recently, talking to students. I'd speak at some of the universities in London and speaking to people that were interviewing, trying to explain them how detailed you have to be, how driven you have to be to uncover and to learn about the markets. The markets are so complex. Recently, I recruited some students to help us with our night shift trading on the gas desk, and they're very, very keen, all the students at the universities, the main universities in London that we go to, and I think they have got an idea, probably coming from social media, that they can learn how to be a trader very, very quickly, that somebody is going to come and teach them. And I've tried to get through to these guys that the best way to be successful as a trader is to understand a lot of detail of the market, understand exactly how does that gas storage work, what are the dynamics, what are the pricing implications. You've got all the data, understand the flows between different countries, and that's the same whether it's power or whether it's gas or whether it's a physical commodity. What are the flows of the commodity that are getting shipped around the world? And you can understand all the operational detail, and a lot of that stuff will be boring. You will have operational aspects to the job, like your nominations or your notifications in the power market. Understanding those processes inside out, even though you're repeating the process day in, day out, you do all this admin, you do all this check every number, make sure every number's right. And then you come in the next day and you've got to do it all again. And it might be boring. But it's a bit like, I compare it to in social media, how people see all these beautiful people with the perfect bodies and the perfect lifestyles that are on Instagram, you know. It's a bit like that. I think there's a view on social media, probably coming from LinkedIn, that there's a lot of traders, that they make money for the companies, they make money for themselves, they have a great lifestyle. And it kind of makes it look glossy and look easy, but it's hard work. It's really, really competitive.
Yeah.
So it's getting through that what you see at the front of social media is not always what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So I guess there's an element of like negative selling at the start, like making sure they're aware of what they're signing up for.
Yeah.
But like, because you must have to interview, I don't know, 50, 100 candidates in these graduate programs. So I guess like because everyone's probably applying as from a good university. Yeah. Probably got good degree. Yeah. So that's kind of just standard for par for the course. Yeah. So what is
all
it?
your CVs will be like that. They'll all have good degrees, good, you know, engineering degrees, physics degrees, computer science degrees.
Yeah. So like
it's hard.
So how do they stand out, like for you, when you're trying to go from 50 candidates to, you know, I don't know, a short list of 5, or like which are the ones?
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's no matter how many interviews you do, and I have done hundreds and hundreds, or maybe even thousands over the years, but there is no fail-safe way of doing it. Yeah. But there's a lot to be said about looking someone in the eye in the interview and asking them to explain something logically and checking. You can read on someone's face whether they're understanding things. And there's lots of techniques that I do use in interviews, which we've probably not got time or the right place to go into all those sorts of things today. But one thing I've noticed after I left RWE, I was talking to a number of companies about various roles that were available. At the time, I don't think my heart was really in any of these roles or companies that I was talking to. Hence, I didn't really want the job. And I think if you really, really want the job, the interviewer can tell. Yeah. If you don't actually want that job, there is no point in going for it, because you won't get it. Yeah. Because if you switch to the other side and you're interviewing someone, and you have that feel that someone isn't really, really passionate and understanding of the job and desperate to come and work for you or in your company or to do the role that you're interviewing for, you can feel it within seconds or minutes. You know whether someone really wants the job or not. Yeah. And I suppose these sorts of techniques, that's not something you can teach someone to interview. Yeah, and
it's say, just like with experience.
It's seeing lots of different people. But that only really struck home to me as an interviewer from when I guess kind of interviewed and not really wanted the job. And I thought, well, it's not going to come across well because you're not really passionate about it.
Yeah, for sure. And something you mentioned, which I do find really interesting about, like, and I hear this all the time because I interview obviously a lot of candidates every single day, and I always ask them like, what's important for you, and quite often something I do hear is like, I want to learn. Yeah, just curious to get your views on that one.
Yeah, no, we talked about this the other day actually, but I think this is something that I have felt has changed quite a lot since 2005 to 2010 when I did a lot of recruitment. I remember very clearly being very frustrated doing graduate interviews where a lot of people had explained how they wanted to be a trader, and they expected to be a trader very, very quickly from day one of arriving. And it used to frustrate me that I felt like they didn't feel they had anything to learn. Yeah. Whereas now, I think I'm switching the other way, that I'm feeling very frustrated that the main thing that people are telling me when they come to an interview, not everybody, but a lot of people are saying, I just want to go somewhere to learn. Mm-hmm. And also people that are leaving one job to move to another company. And again, it's more common to job hop, I do feel these days, partly to do with it being a bit of a hiring bubble, but partly to do with this mentality of having someone to learn off. And it is good to have people to learn off, but the primary aim of getting the job is not for you to learn, it's for you to provide a benefit to the company. You know, there's people coming for interview expecting 100k or 150k, and they're telling me that the reason they want the job is so that they can learn. And I'm thinking, well, perhaps the company might need to benefit as well. It's not a university, it's not a graduate program. We're expecting you to provide an input and provide some results. You're not going to get paid unless you're making the money at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's as black and white of that. And I think it is good that people acknowledge, don't get me wrong, that they do want to learn.
Yeah, growth mindset.
There's a lot more to it.
Important.
So I started thinking about this a lot and thought back to how was it for me? How did I learn how to trade? I probably had 10 different trading jobs in different commodities, in different companies, in different parts of the world. And I have to say that every single one of those, no one taught me how to trade. You had to figure it out, because if you think about it, every single year, the market is different.
Yeah.
The market design changed, the market fundamentals change, the people that are trading change, the technology changes.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why I love this job in the first place, because for the past 30 years, it's like doing a different job every year, because so much changes. And that's very exciting. But no one taught me how to trade or how to trade a new product. A lot of it is common sense. You figure it out. There will be people around to help you. You learn off your peers, you learn off your juniors, you learn off your seniors, you learn off different people in the company. Yeah, that's good. You need to use that as well, but it's fundamentally down to you to figure it out. They don't expect someone to say, well, if you use this strategy, you're going to make every year for 5 years, you're going to make money. It doesn't work like that, because the market doesn't behave like that.
No.
What people did last year isn't going to work this year, because everything's different again.
Yeah, definitely not.
And actually, another interesting point that I thought about that was I actually learned so much more from the people that messed it up. The people that did it well.
Well, you don't really learn.
You learn from what goes wrong,
not
from what goes right.
Exactly.
So you use those experiences to then reinvent yourself as a trader every year, and that's hard to do. And it's people expect that it's going to be easy, but it's very, very hard to do that.
And I guess that it takes a special kind of person that's able to just reinvent themselves every year, and having that motivation to go from having the best, a great year, 31st of December, but then 1st of January, it doesn't matter. It all starts from zero again.
Yeah. I remember that feeling every year for 22 years. The 31st of December, your year is starting again the next day.
Yeah.
And that feeling every single year for 22 years, I thought, this is the end. I'm never going to make money again. I'm never going to get another opportunity that was as good as last year.
Yeah.
But every year, you just keep digging and keep going, and new opportunities come up every single year. You do have to be patient sometimes. You don't have to trade every day. Yeah,
this is a good point, especially what I'm hearing at the moment. If the market's not really fundamentally making sense, like in prop trading, like what you guys do, is that something that you're advising your team? Like, if it doesn't make sense, don't enter the market.
I have said that sometimes the best position is flat, but I do kind of like to not put my opinions on them too much. So I will talk about stuff, but not, because every trader's got their own different style.
Yeah,
and it's actually quite hard to get that balance between helping someone out but not telling them what to do, because I actually really want everybody to have their own different style. And that's one of the things I like in the team, is that I've got a lot of diversity. So everyone has got their own style. People have come from different companies, from different backgrounds. That's the team that I've got now. People have got different experiences. They're all of different ages, and they are all have traded different markets and are trading different markets. Some of them trade the same thing, but in a completely different way. And I don't want everybody trading the same way. I don't want them to trade like they need to find their own way. But I definitely do say that sometimes the best position is flat, because I do think people overtrade. That's a natural thing to want to do. I've got to trade. If I can't trade, if I don't trade, I'm not going to make money. But if you do trade, you could lose money. So
especially.
That's a hard one, actually. I do think about that a lot.
And that's interesting, just going into that, your leadership style. So you maybe have alluded to it a little bit there. So how would you describe your leadership style?
I suppose that's part of it. Another thing I'm very keen on is having everyone working as a team. So we have a very open team. Everybody shares ideas together. No one is keeping ideas for themselves. They'll help each other out, share what their strategies are themselves very openly with everybody else in the team. Sometimes if there's a good strategy, actually, this was something that came up actually recently, is one person in the team came up with an idea that was a good idea. He made a position in that. Talking to some colleagues on the desk, some of the other guys on the desk thought, well, that's good. Let's have a joint book and we'll take a bigger size in that position. And they work together and do that. And I think I like to encourage any sort of collaboration. Is always good. Two heads are better than one. 20 heads are better than two. And then more and more people wanted to have the same strategy. And there's pros and cons of that, because I thought about this a lot of the time. Sometimes it's quite common that people within a company or within a team, they'll spot someone else making money and they think, well, I want a bit of that. I want to have that position.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't actually want to stop that. But what you do have to do is make sure that, well, if you've got all of a sudden 10 guys that are all having the same strategy, you've got to make sure at a company level that the risk is managed and the company appetite for that risk is met, so that it's not too big a position for what the company would want. But if you think about them individually, like one guy will have his own risk limit in his inbuilt risk limit in his head that I would only want to have on that certain position 50 megawatts, for example. But really, the company might be happy with a limit of 300 megawatts. So it's fine that one guy thinks 50 is good for me. One guy might think 5 megawatts is good enough for me. One guy might want 250 megawatts himself. So I think it's good that each person has their own risk appetite, and traders need to develop that as a skill. Know your own market and know how much risk you should be taking in that market, because one day you might have to get out of that position. And I always say the trader is the best risk manager. Because not every trader is a risk manager, don't get me wrong, but a good trader should have a good feel for their own risk. They shouldn't rely on a risk control person to come and tap them on the shoulder and say, your limit, stop it. Obviously, you do need to have that as well, but you're responsible for your own book, your own profit. And there is help available within the team, from me, from risk guys or whoever, but really, ultimately, it's your risk.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess like that collaboration, like how do you foster that? Like in your culture, like is it something that you teach, or is it just something that naturally is able to form? Like,
I suppose it's something that I really enjoy, and I'm always very open to, or always was open to, share my views or share my positions with colleagues around me, and to do things in partnership with someone else, because it helps to have someone else say, oh yeah, I agree with you, and let's go large on that one. That's always helpful. But also it's driven from a place where I wouldn't want to work in a place where that doesn't happen, because I just wouldn't enjoy it. It just isn't as much fun just for me, working just completely on my own. It's just much more fun to have different mindsets and different people around you to learn and develop from. And I suppose it starts from choosing the right people that you feel are going to, at the beginning when you're building a team from zero, the first few people that you get is really, really key, because having all of the early stages, having people that A, are collaborative, and B, that work hard, have a good work ethic, they're the two main things I look for. Okay, that's interesting. And then as you get up to a certain number, which is probably once you've gone beyond 5, 6, 7, I suppose, and you've got, everybody has got that work ethic, that they're all sharing ideas, they're all working as a team. They might have joint books, they might have joint strategies, and they're all working hard. If somebody comes through and they don't end up fitting in, or they're not as cooperative as a team member, they normally don't last or stay. Because culture's formed in that first 6, 7. And that in the early days of building that, I'm really extra careful to try and form that. But now at the stage where we are now, it's very easy when people come into the office, if they're interviewing, they can spot really quickly what the collaboration is like and what the environment is like. I just say, just come into the office and we'll show you what we've got. We'll show you what we're doing. We'll come and talk to anybody in the team that you want to, and then you'll find out, is it the right place for you or not? Yeah, for sure. And I've been into the office myself, and something I really find fascinating is like your environment. You've got an fundamental trading approach, and it's collaborative trading, technical trading analysis approach, and then you've got Dare in their other markets, and there's different styles, isn't there, within Dare, and it seems to like show that there's just not one style that works. And that was a good learning experience for me when I joined, because Dare was originally set up as an oil derivatives trading firm, and then the liquidity provision space, which is kind of like a market making style strategy. And it's something that I hadn't come across before, because a lot of the companies that are doing that are in the oil markets, which is a product that I've not traded personally. And they really at the top of their game in the liquidity provision space. And it is very interesting to learn about what they do in that. And another thing that we've been able to do is you could have some guys that are trading from a liquidity provision perspective in a certain product, and my team can trade as a fundamental strategy or a systematic strategies or algo strategies. We do algos as well. You can have different types of strategies all trading in the same market and all making money or not, but they can share information together and work across strategies and learn from each other, and that happens a lot now. So that's been good. It's another angle of diversity, is have diversified strategies as well as diversification of people's backgrounds and diversification of people's risk appetite, just diversity of everything I really like.
Yeah, and I guess for trading in general, diversity is important, like in terms of not all having the same kind of trades going on at the same time.
Yeah.
I guess being in the office, like I think that really tends to foster collaboration as well.
Yeah, we don't really think about not being in the office. If you miss a week in the office, you miss too much action. So people do just come in because they want to, and it's.
Yeah.
I always say it's good fun, but not. I don't just mean good fun in terms of we'll tell jokes or, have a laugh. We do that as well. But a lot of people enjoy the fun of having mental stimulation and having different people with different ideas. And if you're not in the office, you miss out on some stuff that's going on.
Yeah, well, having been there myself, walking through, it's high energy, it's exciting, it's really there's a buzz like of what I used to think before I got into the space, like what a trading floor should look like. Yeah,
keeps me on my toes anyway.
Yeah. It's like I say, it's a fast-moving environment. It'd be interesting to understand just on the topic of like different styles, but specifically because this podcast is more oriented to power trading. It'd be good to understand like what you believe are like the key traits for a power trader, like a high-performing power trader specifically.
I mean, I don't think there's anything different to what we'd discussed before with people having an inquisitive mind. Obviously these days, as you will know, Patrick, because if you've been involved in a lot of companies that are doing the algo trading, and having a technical capability is going to be useful these days, even if it's just Python coding. Yeah. So we do look for things like that. And I always look for diversity in that aspect as well. So for example, I've got a guy who specialises in optimization techniques. So that was his PhD. Yeah. And then another guy who coming in from a machine learning angle. So building, for example, a stat model using optimization techniques. If you put that together with the machine learning style of building a stat model and put them together, hopefully you can get an overall better model. Yeah. That's a very simple example. Yeah. And having people who have done curve trading and don't have knowledge of the short-term trading or vice versa.
I know what you mean though, like having different experiences. Like people can, if it's collaborative, they can obviously share information. But what I was wanting to find out, because I speak to a lot of intraday desks about like what we're seeing in the market now. We've got probably what I class as like 3 different types of trading styles. You've got the discretionary trading style in intraday, which is everyone operating 24/7 desk, and then you've got on the other extreme new entrants that are just like machine learning, like geniuses, don't have any trading background, but are looking at like weather models and trading the intraday market that way, like algorithmically or automated. And then we've got the hybrid approach where we're using the best of both. We're looking at still having discretionary traders who've got great track record and understanding of the market.
Right, I see what you mean.
And then you bring in the automated trading as well. So where would you say Dare are in that?
Well, I think this goes back to what we talked about before, about the market, how it changes.
Yeah.
One thing might have worked a few years ago that isn't working anymore. Yeah. And I think on that question, there's definitely a divide where people have got some strong views in either direction. I'm going to be boring and go down the middle and say I would still be going for hybrid because discretionary is not completely gone. It remains to be seen whether pure algos on their own will be profitable in a big way. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying they won't. I'm not sure anyone really knows yet. Mm-hmm. So until we really know, why wouldn't you just do both and keep digging, keep investigating, keep backtesting, keep trying new ideas? Yeah. And it will all come out eventually. We're trying to... You need to try and reinvent yourself as traders, as a trading desk, as a trading company. So nothing's out of the question, I would say on that one. Yeah, so something I'm noticing with a couple of firms that are doing it well is like the trader becomes more of like a market surveillance like officer, like just monitoring what's going on and trying to find, obviously if there's opportunities to trade, then they'll trade, but also they're also working alongside a systematic trader or an algo trader, and it's like, what trends are we spotting? Can we automate this? Yeah, absolutely. And like they're then just working together, and so that means that they might not trade as much every day as they were doing like 3 years ago, but their value is in like what they see in the market every day. Trying to create as many algorithms around that as possible. Absolutely. That's a good idea. Yeah. And but what people tell me is obviously there's still quite a number of days in the year which
the market, doesn't really make sense. The algos aren't going to catch it, and they're the days where you can make the majority of your
There's
money.
always stuff, especially in power, that you can't model.
So that's my belief, that there's always going to be a need for someone who's a market specialist, but maybe the role just evolves with working closer to the algo guys, rather than having like two separate camps. One thinks they're going to take their job and trying to be a bit standoffish. I think it's interesting that the companies are really trying to merge them together and get them on the same side. They can trade the same market, but they have two different paths as well. Like they can go the same position, or they can collaborate. That's kind of what I'm hearing. I would agree with that.
It's good I think it's always good to have all the different strategies running together. And as a trader, again, like we talked about earlier, is you develop as a trader as the market changes, and you have to be willing to change. The people that don't change are the ones that will get left behind. So having a foot in both camps, I think, is the best thing at the moment.
Yeah. But like you say, it can change year on year.
Who knows what's going to happen next?
Yeah. And just on like a brief overview of 2025, like where we are today in general, like again, a lot of people I talk to say like it's not very fundamentally driven right now, and it's tough. Like, is that something that you would agree with? And
it's definitely tough, that's for sure. I think people did make good money in 2021, 2022, and that's not going to last forever. It was exactly the same in 2008.
Yeah.
There was maybe 3 really good years where there was a lot of people making good money, and then following that there was some very quiet years where the volatility was a lot lower, and that's inevitable. We're never going to have this volatility forever. So it's heads down, come up with new ideas, work hard, be open to new strategies and new markets, and anything that's new, try some back testing, and there's a lot, just keep coming up with the ideas and keep trying things, but maybe don't get greedy. I think traders in the years where we had the big trend, it was good in 2022, for example. If you just bought, anyone that tried to short into that wouldn't have survived, would they? So people made a lot of money from the market going up. Maybe there's a temptation that when we have blips in the market again, that people think, oh, it's going to go up more than it is actually going to go up. So maybe a time for taking some profits sooner, and not expecting it to go to the moon again, because it's not going to happen again.
Chasing yesterday's profit.
Yeah.
And I guess something I've seen as well has been a lot of entrants. Like you talked about the cyclical nature of the market. 2008, there was a lot of banks entered. Now there's been a lot of funds entered. And
even back to late 90s, early 2000s, there was all the US trading companies came in, Enron, Dynegy. There was a number of them at the time, Aquila. They came, they went. Everyone thought, oh, the market's not going to be the same again. Then the banks came and they went, and everyone thought the market's not going to be the same again. But now again, more different styles of trading companies are coming in. Probably a bit too many, and not everyone's going to survive, for sure. Maybe there's not enough money to go around all these people. So that will all happen naturally, I guess.
And for you in these, like, let's say if it's a quieter time, is there anything that you do in these times where are you more focused on new market research? Are you focused on like just brainstorming ideas? Like, is that something that you try and do more in the quieter times? Like, so you take the guys off for an hour or two, and
it's definitely even when the market's quiet, it's never quiet.
No, that's what I mean. Is there ever a time to be able to?
There's always too much to do. There's too much to look at. There's too much data, but it's all good.
So is that something that you're going to be looking at this year? Are you wanting to enter more markets, or are you happy with what you've got? Right? You're in quite a lot of places already, right?
We have set up a lot of new markets, and not all of them were fully trading yet, just because of the amount of time there is to spend on the new stuff. So we're all right for now. We still keep investigating new markets and keep growing strategies and keep coming up with new ideas.
So you're in Europe, you're in the US, and you're in Japan.
We do Japanese power as well.
Right, okay. I've heard that takes quite a long time to set up Japan.
You're probably talking about the physical license. The physical license takes a long time. You can trade futures straight away on EX. So that takes no time at all to set up.
And that's all done for people interested in opportunities there. Is that all done from London?
Yeah, we do it all from London. Obviously, it's hard with the time difference, but there's benefits to be had from having people together. It's linked to the JKM market, which again is linked to the TTF market. And if everyone's in the same place, that's good. But then there's pros and cons of having it in one place, and there's pros and cons of having it split into two places. So for now, it's in one place.
Yeah, so you've got a desk that's operating 24/7 because of the different markets then, I guess.
In Japan, they're not operating 24/7, but
in your office, because of how international the focus.
The US guys are always there
in
an evening. I've got guys on the intraday power that work into the evening, or they're very early.
Yeah.
And then also on the gas as well, because we're in gas market.
Yeah.
We've got people working till kind of 2 a.m. normally.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Julie, awesome. I think we've covered a lot there. And some really interesting takes, especially around, obviously, when it comes to grad hiring, obviously what it takes to be a top power trader, the traits that you look for. We even touched on the market in general at the moment. So yeah, look, I do really appreciate your time. I hope everyone listening found it really insightful.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Patrick. It's been really interesting.
Yeah, and thanks for being my first in-person guest too.
Yeah, it's good.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone. Bye.